Good morning and welcome back to Plannercraft. I'm Natalie and today we're going to be doing some work in Canvas. So there is going to be times delay when I can't see comments, but hopefully I should be able to flick backwards and forwards between the two without you losing Canvas. So good morning, Deb. I'm going to do a few good mornings while I'm waiting for people to join. Don't be afraid to ask questions. I will try and come back to questions halfway through. I'll just wait for a few more people. Good morning, Thea. And hopefully the connection's a little better today. Fingers crossed. There's no BT man digging a hole today. Okay. So I thought today that we would do a little bit of a Canvas workshop. Mainly because my desk looks like a hot mess and there's things on it that you can't see just yet, but I can't wait to show you. So I thought we would do a little bit from organisation, which is, yeah, good with us out here surrounded by paper. So morning Delcy, morning Tracy, and that's good to hear that connection is okay here and you can hear me okay. So, as I said, it is a bit of a different setup for the stream today, so if there are any issues, just drop a comment and I will pick that up as soon as possible. Ooh, excuse me. And let's get started. So, hopping over to Canvas. Now, for those of you that aren't familiar with Canvas, I'm going to do a very, very quick overview. So, all your kind of shape tools, path tools are down the left hand side here, whether that's using basic shapes, borders, words and any add-on designs that you may have, which you've got an activation card for. You have your text tool, you can import SVGs, trace images and draw your paths using the equivalent of a pen tool or pencil tool. Across the top we have our main kind of movement and navigation functions. So I'm just going to zoom in a little bit more so you can see that map's a little bit bigger. Now, as you get used to working with Canvas, you're going to be starting to want to zoom in and out a little bit more. So you can use shortcuts as well. But just for today, I'm going to keep it all on screen so it's nice and simple for you to see what I'm doing. Over on the right hand side you have all your properties and edit panels, so anything you've already drawn that you want to edit, chances are it's going to be one of these functions down this right hand side. At the top we have properties where we can set the fill and line colours. Now in terms of what your machine sees, the colours aren't going to change that much. It's just going to basically change a few settings if you have paths to draw. You have your line width, and again the line width is only really for your reference, so it's not going to make a pen draw bolder. And we have a few other things that are brand new by the looks of it, so this looks fun. So we have dash pattern and dot spacing, which could be really useful for if you want to do things like your scoring. So we'll have a play with that in a bit. And we also have our text tools in here and our alignment for our text. So this is where if you've put your text onto a path, you're going to have your vertical alignment and your path direction. And next up is our edit. So if you want to change the size, the rotation, the direction, so you can flip in both vertical and horizontal, then you're going to use that top section, which is all about changing the path that you have selected. Then we have duplicate, which is going to fill the page with whichever shape you choose. We have align and distribute. So this is going to be moving the shape rather than changing the shape. And finally we have our process overlap just down here, which is where you have two or more shapes selected, and you can use your weld and your divide and so on and so forth. Finally, offset right at the bottom, and if you have the vinyl option you will have a little weeding box that's going to be right down, so you need to scroll. Layers is not traditionally layers in the sense that if you are familiar with other programs, so it's not going to have objects within individual layers. Basically it's the equivalent more of an objects panel, so you're going to see each object individually as we start to create. Down here you have a little duplicate button, so that's going to just duplicate that shape once rather than the fuller page that you have on the edit tab. We have a little group button too on this panel, and also delete. Artboard, if I go on to that one, so I have the option for the 12 by 12 and the 12 by 24, which is standard, and also the custom size for tiling, which is enabled when you get the vinyl auto blade. So times when you are going to want to tile can be something that you want to cut edge to edge 12 by 12, so you actually end up cutting it in two pieces. Likewise, if you want to go edge to edge 12 by 24, you're likely to want to use tiling because you can't cut all the way to the edge of your mat. And of course, obviously, if you want to go larger than your mats. So the ruler, we have our units. I tend to flick between the two, use whichever you feel more comfortable with, and underneath we have a little show ruler button, and that means that you can see your measurements across your mat, and if I change to inches you're going to see that that ruler changes. Again, useful especially when you start to get into tiling and you're no longer tied to that mat function. And we can turn off the mat image if we want, so we just literally just see on our centre part of our mat, and we can turn off the grid. So if you're working with something that has lots of fluid shapes and you don't really think the grid is of any use to you, you can turn it off. I tend to leave mine on. It's just handy for working out things like sizes of vinyl that you need to cut, so you can cut all your elements at once. And we can change the grid spacing too, so at the moment that's set to 1 inch to match the actual cutting mats themselves, but if you want to you can change that, so you can have it set to half and you're going to get both the 1 inch and the ½ inch. We can go down to 0.25 and have the quarters and the halves, as well as the wholes and the 3/4, but for the most part I tend to keep it on that one. Now, times when that's going to be really useful to actually change is if you have snap to grid turned on. So this is where when we move things or resize things, it's going to snap to that base grid. So if you're finding that your shape is jumping across your mat, probably what you'll find is that's been turned on, and you can just click it on and off as you wish. So most of the time I'll leave mine off, but if there's something in particular that I just want to make sure I get to a size, I can flick that on. So that's a really quick overview of Canvas for those that have never used it. Those of you who are used to watching these streams, now to get into the main content. So just before I do, I'm just going to have a quick flick and make sure there's no extra comments. And good morning, Carol. Hope you are feeling well. And also, for some reason, I can see Mom said morning and it's not put it through to the comments. So I will try and keep an eye on the chat, and if there's any other issues like that, hopefully I should be able to see. So going back to Canvas, I want to do some labels and tags. So I'm not going to use necessarily what I'm actually going to put into the labels for today, but I wanted to show you a few ideas. So I'm going to start off with some text, and we're just going to click onto our mat, and we can type whatever it is that we want to put in. So let's put label. There we go. Now I'm going to zoom in so I can use that little up arrow at the top to zoom in, and you can see that our top bar has actually changed. So I'm going to zoom right in so I can see my text nice and clearly. I'm going to change to my hand tool so that I can drag that mat. So usually I do all this with key presses, but as I said, for you to be able to see it easier, it's actually easier for me to do it on screen. I'm going to change back to the arrow tool. Okay, so with that selected, I can move that in a bit. And at the moment it's going to cut, and it will cut as individual little letters. Now if you're putting this onto the front of a tub, for instance, you might be just fine doing it like that. Put a weeding box around it, and then you can use your transfer tape to lift it off. However, if you want to create some shaped labels, for instance, if you want to do some tags, if you want to or need to actually tie them onto like a folder rather than actually put it onto the folder itself, then let's show you what we can do. So obviously at the moment our text is independent, and you can't weld a non-overlapping shape. Get your words out right, non-overlapping. So if there's a gap here, that's not going to weld. But what we can do instead is build a bridge. So if we go to edit, down to our offset, we're going to go outwards, and we're going to go to 0.2 inches for now. So I want to leave the original as is, and our corner type, let's go around out of the 2. And down here it has create an offset line only around the outside edge. So what that means is where you've got the holes in the middle letters, it's not going to put a line in there. So for what I want to do, I'm going to leave that selected. I'm going to go OK. So then that's going to give us a shape that we can cut that our letters can actually adhere to. Now we've got a bit of a funny thing going on here. So we can go, actually, that's not quite how I wanted to do that. So now we can go back to offset, and let's go up a notch. Okay, so now we have one that we have a nice simple outline around. Now if you want to do a layering topper, you would use that exact same process, just you're going to build it up in multiple levels. So you would have an offset somewhere in this middle here, and have those all cut from different colours. So at the moment, if we were to send that as is, you're going to actually be cutting these letters out of this background shape. Now that might be a look that you want to go for, but you're going to lose the centre of your B and your A and your E as well. So what I'm actually going to do is do it so that I have one object that is going to be cut from, say, card, and another object that we can cut from vinyl. So the one that we're going to cut from vinyl, we need to put a weeding box around. Now you can get it to do automatic weeding boxes, but for something like this where you've got different materials, I'm just going to do a manual one. So just pick a basic shape. I'm going to resize that shape so that it fits that text. So the corner nodes will resize both height and width, and the center nodes like this and this will do just one dimension at a time. And you don't have to leave too much space around for your weeding box, just want enough that you can be able to just pick it up with some transfer tape. Okay, so that's one way of doing it. So this face shape here, we could cut from card, but you could also cut it from something like clear vinyl. So that if you are doing a layering sticker and you don't want to have to necessarily use transfer tape, then you can use a background layer of clear and actually use it more like a normal sticker. So particularly if it's something that's got lots of layers, so it's going to have quite a bit of dimension to it anyway. But what if we want to do something a little different, like actually draw onto the tag rather than using another material, and make things a little easier, a little cheaper? So let's go to the text tool again. We're going to click and we'll go for label again. So this time I'm going to change font. Let's go for something a little bit different. You could go for a single line at this point, but I'm going to show that in a minute. So in the meantime, let's go for something scripty, I think. Maybe not scripty because that would be loud. Let's go for that one. Quite classy. So, as I want to draw this, if the text was smaller and thinner, then what I would say is don't fill. Because obviously if you fill into thin text, you're going to get kind of a sort of wiggly edge to it, especially if it loses its calibration while it's drawing, which it can do. But for something where it's a bit stronger, we can actually put a fill in. So if we go up to the top here, where you've got your paint bucket, we can just click there and it's going to open up your colour palette. Now on a PC, you are going to have the first 4 palettes. On a Mac, you get an extra one, which is the crayons. So I tend to use the crayons a lot, but it's no different in terms of what I'm doing to if you have to use one of the other options. So let's pick a colour. Now, typically when I'm working in Canvas, I don't set colours according to what I'm actually going to use unless it's something really complicated. So if I'm doing something with lots of different colours, I'll colour code the shapes. If it's just something where I'm going to be cutting and drawing on the same piece of card, anything that is drawn I'm going to colour blue, anything that is going to be cut I'm going to colour black. So we can put it in blue. We can go to the line, which is this next item here, and we can set that to blue too. Finally, to tell the machine that it actually needs to draw it, we need to set that to draw. Now you'll notice when I did that little drop down, I've got cut, draw and pierce. That's because I have the paper piercing kit. So when you have that activated, you will have that option. But if you don't have it, then it won't be there. So now we've got that there, we can go back to offset. And let's just take that down a little bit and see how we go. So because our text is close together, but also kind of blocky, then we can get away with taking that offset down a bit. Now if you've got something with lots of twiddly bits, lots of thin bits, then you're probably not going to want to go that close. You're probably better off going more for this kind of arrangement where you've got more space. But for something like this, we can go that little bit closer. Now I did say that I wanted to be able to tie this to a folder, and obviously at the moment that's just going to literally cut out the word. So let's make a little bit of a tag. So I'm going to go to basic shapes. I'm going to scroll down to the circle. I'm going to add a circle in. Looks massive. Let's resize that down a bit. Okay, so first of all I'm going to position that circle where I think I want to add that to. Now I'm going to do an offset, and this time we're going to go inside. And let's go for that same 0.6, 0.16 even. And we're going to go OK. So it's going to put a little hole in the middle. Now to get that to cut out successfully, we first of all need to get this bigger circle. Press and hold Shift and click on our offset line. So that's going to have the two outsides. And in the edit panel, we're going to go down to process overlap because we've got two or more shapes selected. And we can go and weld those together. Okay. Now, if you find that you've got a bit of a weird thing going on in here, don't panic and think, oh, I've got to undo that, make that circle bigger and all the rest of it. No, we can just literally go in and just fix those little issues. Now, you'll probably think, oh no, now she's going to say nodes, but no. Let's keep it nice and simple. We're going to use another circle, resize it down. I'm going to go where those two lines are a bit too close. If we go into our layers, we can use that duplicate function because we need another one for this one just here. So again, we can take that down there, like so. We can use Shift and click so that we have our outside shape and our two circle patches selected. We can go back to edit, down to process overlap and weld that, and we can clean that up. So no faffing with nodes, and it's all nice and simple. So if you want to, what I would say next is you want to group that. So we could use subtract to just put into that hole through that outside bit, but if we're going to be grouping anyway, there's very little point. So back to the layers palette. Make sure that your items are all blue, and we can click on the group, and that's going to make a little group. Now obviously that style of label is great for like one word things, but what about if you've got something that is more like a title? So I wanted to show you a little bit of a trick that we can do to do some little layering tags. So you can actually use this same technique to do some sentiments for your cards if you want. So I'm going to go back to my text tool and let's put label. Back to the text tool again. And we can put line 2. And line 3. So there we go. So we've got a bit of variation. And you might go, okay, that's great, I've got my text in, how do I space that out for starters? Let's start with that one. So select those lines, we're going to go back to edit, and we're going to go to distribute objects, and that's going to put an even amount of space between our bounding box, so that's the outside edge. So if I click off this, it's going to look like, well, there is more space between here and here because it's seeing that L in the first place. So if you want to change that to make the spacing easier, you can just change that so that's lowercase, and yep, that's great. And we can do the same process again. Now you can also use your distribute space if you want to have a set space between those objects. So that tends to be more so if you are doing things like building nets or boxes or envelopes, anything where you need to be precise about your positioning. But for something like this, just those two options there are all you need. So with that all selected, I'm also going to centre it as well. So that's going to pull everything to that centre line. Okay. Now, if we were to try and group these and then do that offset, chances are it's not going to work. So what we actually need to do is do our offset 3 times, one for each label. So we're going to go offset, and I'll keep with that same amount. Make sure that you switch it round to go outwards. Okay. And we're going to do the same for line 2 and the same for line 3. Now you'll notice that you've got gaps here. Now what I would say and suggest doing at this point is going, okay, let's work out roughly how much space I need to have on that offset to actually get those items to overlap. So we know our offsets exist independently of our text, so we can delete those and redo them, but our biggest gap is just here. So I'm probably going to have to take that offset up a couple of notches so that we get a nice solid overlap, and certainly between here and here too. So let's take those out. And it is worth doing all your lines, because don't presume that because 2 shapes work that the 3rd shape will work. Okay, so we're going to go 2 notches. Okay. Good news is it remembers your last settings. And there we go. So we have something where your offset is overlapping, but it still has a bit of shape to it to match what's going on. So now we can take those offset paths, press and hold shift, and we're going to highlight the 3 of them. And we can weld. There you go. So if you are just doing this for a sentiment, then you could stop there. But I'm going to sort out these little bits in here too. So again, we can use the same process of adding a circle. Drag that down, resize it. Doesn't have to be a circle, so if you know an oval is going to do it better, then you can use an oval. Shift and click that outside line and weld, and there we go. So we've got rid of those little bits in the middle, and you can also do that same process of adding our little tag there. Now when you do your offset or any welding, it's going to bring it up to the top, so let's just drop it down. So to do that, all I'm doing is clicking and dragging, and that's just changing the layer order, so that we're going to put a text on top. We can use Shift to select all of our text. We can set it to draw. We can set our outline to blue. And we can fill it too. And select all of that and group. So you notice sometimes it's easier to just click and drag, where we start on one corner and click and drag over, where we want everything that's going to be underneath that window, and then group. Or sometimes if you just want to have certain objects and you know they're overlapping others, it's easier to use this layers palette. Oh, the drop downs aren't working. That's a nightmare. Are you seeing the pop-ups for the offset as well? I was having trouble with this view. I can't change it to no. Okay, I will do lots of audio description then. It's a little bit annoying. It's because basically with the different views, so that I can manage to flick back and see comments, rather than it just broadcasting my screen, it's just broadcasting Canvas. So obviously when Brother programmed Canvas, they've put it as a separate window, which is why you can't see it, which is really annoying. So let me just talk through that again. Let's go for a different text. And this time we'll put label again. And I'm going to go for a scripty font, so I will tell you which one I'm going to go for as well when I get there. Let's go for... let's go for this one. So it's a single line text, which is a bit weird. So this is Ant which is, I believe, a silhouette font. So if you have the Silhouette software, you can actually download fonts through that too. And it was probably a free one as well, so it's worth keeping an eye out to see which fonts they have free. And let's go for an offset on that. So this could be interesting. So I'm going to go back to edit, back to offset. So just to talk you through the offset window as you're not seeing it, it comes up with a pop-up window saying create offset line. At the top you have spacing, which is how much it's going to offset by. Then you have offset direction, which is whether it's going to go outside the shape you have selected or inside. So in this case we definitely want to go outside, so you're going to select outward. Corner type, you have two options. You have round or bevel. Round, when it gets to a corner, it's going to go round and do a nice rounded corner. Bevel is going to cut it off more like if you were doing a seam allowance. So if that is something that you are working with, then you'll find that more useful option than the round. And finally you have selected original line. So the path that you have selected, you can choose what you want to do with it. And you can leave it as is. So it's going to leave that text there. You can delete it if you don't need it anymore, or you can set it to a drawing line. So for instance, a really quick way of doing this is I'll set it to a drawing line and I will go OK. So I now know that text in the middle is going to be a drawing line. And if I go in here, you can see text has changed to a little pen. And likewise up here, it says draw. And we can then change that to blue as usual. So rather than fill, because it's a single line, just do the line like so and leave that fill. So it looks like this, which is black and white triangle, which basically means that there is no colour in it. So hopefully you can all go back and have a play after, so that you can actually see where all those drop downs are. If there's anything you'd like me to go back over because you couldn't quite see because of the setup, what I did and how I did it, I'm just going to group that together so that stays together. Now obviously if we want to edit this text, it's still text, but then you will need to redo that outside shape. So it's not going to automatically adapt. It'll be cool when computers get that clever that you don't need to tell it to do that anymore, but they're not there yet, and certainly Canvas isn't. That's okay, Linda. And Sorry you can't see, but definitely do have a play. I'm going to move that text because it's a little bit annoying that right where it is as well. So let's move that over there. Just so you can see. And yes, Carol, I did want to share if you didn't want to say anything, so letting you do it in your own time. But we've missed you. It has been awfully quiet. So, any questions so far in terms of where you can go from here? And finally, I will show you another option. So I'm just going to hop back to Canvas, use my hand tool, move that across, and I'm going to pinch a duplicate of this group here. So this is on multi-line text, okay, and I want that to go, so it is up here. Let's move that across because I want to be clear in my chat window. And I'm going to click on the offset line and I'm going to delete it. So we've just got our grouped text here. And how can we work with that other than putting an offset round? So nice and simply, we could just put a square around it. But let's go for something that's a little bit more interesting. So I'm going to put a scalloped, well, wavy edge square I think would be more appropriate. Now this is where you could find that the machine starts to get a bit mental. No, mine is. But that's because it's streaming as well. Lots of nodes in something like this where you've got this wavy edge. I'm just going to resize that down. And at this point you could put a little hole in that if you wanted to, but you might go, well actually I need to have a bit more of a border. So I can click that out. And let's go this one instead. Now, because I want to have the hanging strip at the top of my text, I'm just going to rotate it using that top handle, press and hold shift to constrain it to the upright. We can then pop that around the text. Now, if it is being annoying and not moving for you, what you can do is use your line tools. I'm just going to resize that so it fits the width. Okay. Let's select my text. And because it's underneath that box there, we're going to lift that up so that we can then move it on our mat a little easier. So if you're struggling to get to a piece of text, chances are it's sitting underneath a box and it just needs lifting up to the top so that you can move it around a little easier. Okay, so I'm going to drag in a circle, resize it down. Okay, and let's go a bit smaller, about there. Let's show you another trick. So again, I'm going to go to offset. I'm going to reduce the amount of offset back down to that 0.16 of an inch. We're going to go inwards, round, because corners, there isn't a corner in a circle, so it doesn't matter. And you want to leave that original line as is and go OK. So now we have another little circle. I'm going to go to my layers palette. I'm going to duplicate that little circle. And I'm going to pop that circle into my tag. Like so. So this is where you can start to use your subtract. So I'm going to have that circle selected and the outside shape. We're going to go to edit and subtract. We're just going to punch that hole through. I'm going to click and drag it over the top of the two circles so we know those are aligned, and do the same again with that one. So now we have a tag and a little reinforcer that we can cut out of a contrasting colour. So that's a really useful one for if you want to produce things like your own bags, your own clothing that you actually want to sell on a craft store. There you go, there's another label type. So that outside shape, it could be a circle, it could be an oval. You could go for something a bit more funky. If you want to do a little bit of sticker design, then you can layer that up and do some little flowers to go in the corner, for instance. And yes, cancer is a dreadful thing. So, more than our fair share of it, I think. So, are there any questions before I go for today? Hopefully that's given you lots of ideas. And we've missed you, Carol, and it's good to see you back. So we were worried. And thank you, Tracy, for the stars. And I do have something here for Lily, actually. It's just waiting for posting. Got quite a bit of post to do this week, so fingers crossed. It's good that she's keeping creative, though. I think one of the saddest things is when somebody loses their mojo after. And I think creativity can be such a boost for mental health in all kinds of situations. Okay, so I think for today I will leave it there. I will be back on Friday, and hopefully I will be showing you a little bit of a project with some funky stamps. Fingers crossed. Thank you all for watching. Do like, share, heart, care. And all the other options that you have on all the different platforms. It all helps to get the videos out there. So Carol, yes, I'm only doing Tuesdays and Fridays for the foreseeable until I get the book done, and lots of DT stuff going on behind the scenes. So hence my desk looks like a nuclear explosion went off. I also want to record some workshops that are going to be available. So I have those scheduled. So far I have not stuck to my schedule. I'm very naughty. But I will say in my defence that there have been a few changes to DT work this month. So I've worked on lots of different collections. So hopefully come February, March, I will have a bit of an easier, quieter time. I say that and everybody's going, no, just doesn't work out like that. So I do plan, but it doesn't always work out. So, like today, for instance, where it was like, yeah, the desk just isn't going to get in any kind of state where I can actually film on my desk today. So I will do something digital instead. So yes, and also Ian's been awfully strict with my time. So this afternoon and Friday afternoons are supposed to be time off to try and kind of catch up, because I was so burnt out over Christmas it was untrue. We're working on it, Tracy. That's what I'm saying. We're working on it. Watch this space, maybe. You never know. Would be nice. So, take care for now. I'll see you Friday. In the meantime, if you have any questions or problems, then do go to the group. So that's Scanning Cut Papercraft Courses, Classes and Workshops by Plannercraft. Or just message the Plannercraft page or the Plannercraft and Go Create page. I do see messages from all of them. It can be a little delayed sometimes if Facebook doesn't want to tell me. Somewhere with no stairs. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Or at least if there's stairs only to go to bed. It would be nice. Rather than when you've been out and you've gone out for a walk, you're thinking, oh, so knackered. To be confronted with lots of stairs is like, no. And the knees don't like it. So, anyway, digressing. Thank you for watching. Look forward to seeing you all Friday. I will put up a list of things that you might need it if you want to craft along with if there might be a poll going out about time as well, because I'm not sure if 11 AM UK time is the best time for everyone. So if there's a particular time that you think would be better for you, then do let me know. Take care and bye.